Yes. Okay. So there are three screens in this library, and there's a login screen which I'll open to show you first, and then there's two other screens which represent basically a master detail type of thing. And let me just show you how it works. First, you go into the login screen, type the user. That's the correct password. Login successful. This is a message box that's coming from a print statement in Python. Then we have this other screen which opens, and two buttons. Search button shows you the list of the customer list of this Panther Bank of New York. You can select one of them and then get the details for that user. So we have Aladdin, and Aladdin A Disney has these personal information details. We can select Snow White. We can see Snow White's details and so forth. So let me go and show you how this is implemented. We'll go into this login screen. So the login button has on it a control string, validate_login. The screen has some Python code attached to it. There's a validate_login function. And one of the things you might notice here is that initially we're using some DM functions which are built into Panther. We don't have the ability to do embedded SQL in Python, because although you can modify what operators do in Python, you can't add keywords. You can't change syntax. So this was sort of a sixth goal that I felt we could live without being able to do this, because these DM DBMS statements, actually, the strings you pass to them are basically what you would pass in, or basically the same thing you would have in a DM DBMS statement in JPL. So validate login, if we're already logged in, we do pass. Pass is a no-op in Python. Otherwise, we declare the connection, and then we print connected to EntBank. I think you probably saw that. The print statement is basically something that you can modify what it does. It's a built-in function, but we provide a module, Python module, that you can modify to make it do something different. That by default we have it calling SM message box. You might want to change, say, the title of the message box, or do something else with it. So the DM DBMS alias matches this field down here on the screen. And what we're doing here is it's being returned by the select statement here. We're selecting the employees. You can see the whole thing there. Let me bring up the external editor so you can see it a little bit better. Maybe that helps a little bit. This is Visual Studio Code. So the match may have been used at one point for something else, but if the value is greater than 1, it's a success. And you saw the login successful message. We then unget the PF4 key if we're successful. Let me go back and show you what that is. So the PF4 key has on it a control string which opens the cust list screen. And we'll go to that screen next. Let's close this. And your cust list screen, when it opens, it doesn't do anything on opening. You have to press one of these buttons. Search button does a search_cust validation function. And the details button does a send_SSN validation function. These are also implemented in Python. Notice that even though they're validation functions, we're not providing in the parameter list the arguments that these functions can receive. You can receive the arguments if you want. You just have to add them and use type hints so that Panther knows what types those arguments are supposed to be when it calls it. This again, another DM DBMS statement doing an SQL select. We're going to select the owner. These are the fields in the grid that's on the screen. Owner SSN, first name, last name from the customer database. And then to get the value of the DM row count variable, for other globals that you would have access to in, say, JPL, you can reference them directly by name in Python, but @ variables start with an @ sign, and Python doesn't allow you to define variable names that begin with an @ sign. So you can use SM and intval to retrieve that value. You could do this in JPL too, you just wouldn't need to. We get the row count, and if there are no rows found, we weren't in that situation, we do a print, we do the message box. Then that fills this array, and then when we selected the details button, it would call the send SSN function, that first thing that does, and here you're seeing this for the first time, where we're referencing the grid current awk property of customer underscore grid. That's the name of this grid frame on the screen. And that just tells you what is the currently selected, or the place where the cursor is within that grid frame. And gives you a row number back to tell you what row you're on. And then here we're seeing that you can index owner SSN is the first column, the name of the array in the first column. And you can see here that you can index that by row number, just as you would a Panther array in JPL. And it's one base, just like in JPL. We've modified the functionality of the set item and get item of the array class that owner SSN is basically implementing in Python. And that returns the social security number that's at that row. We then pass that in on the next line in the sm underscore send function. Sm underscore, in JPL, you would just use the send verb, send command in JPL. Again, we can't modify Python to add keywords, but using sm send, you use it in just the same way you'd use the send word in JPL. And one difference here is that this is an F string. If you know Python, you know that an F string lets you basically stringify the value of a variable by enclosing it in curly braces within the string. And here you can see that we're doing that with this SSN underscore value, which is in this case, it's a Python variable, I believe, on the screen. It's a Python variable. You can do this with fields as well. And then we're going to, after we do this send, to send this selected social security number, we're going to unget the PF4 key. Let's moving on. Ungetting the PF4 key opens the cust detail screen as a sibling window. That's the third screen in this list. Let's close this for now. I don't want to close that. I didn't change anything. I'll say no. And let's just open the cust detail screen. This screen opens and it also has Python attached to it. Oh, I didn't show you. This is on screen entry. This is an entry function, get cust detail. So now we're using an entry function. And here I did add to what Sanjay had done. I added the arguments for screen entry functions, the two that Panther can take, just to show you that you can do that. And here you can, by default, these we return ints, just like in JPL, but you could add a type hint for this if you wanted to by doing that in Python if you wanted to add a type hint for that. This first thing we're going to do is we're going to receive the social security number from the bundle, and then we're going to call DMDBMS to select the customer that has that social security number. Here again is the F string, and here owner SSN is a field on the screen. Earlier you might have seen that I used a value on the match field. Use the value, it's a pseudo property of a field to get to the content of that. But when you stringify a field with the curly braces, we have in the field class a built-in implementation of the underscore sir function in Python that will automatically just get you the value, so you don't need to use the pseudo value property that we've implemented on the field for that. And F strings are really nice with these kinds of things. They're a little bit safer than, say, colon preprocessing because F strings only work within strings. So even though you could have mistakenly, you could do code injection by accident even with an F string if you're doing like what we're doing here, where we're taking a string and using it as code. Generally, you don't have that problem with Python because in other places where you're not using a string as code, you can only use F strings in strings, whereas in JPL you can use colon preprocessing anywhere. And that could lead to code injection accidentally if you're retrieving that field value from, say, what a user types in. So that's basically the end of this little demo. This new feature, which I'm really excited about, I think adds a lot of value to our Panther product, and I hope you'll take a look at it. Thank you.